All right. What is happening, everybody? Let's do this. Let me try to do this. All right. So we are going live in the tribe in my free Facebook group, Tom the Trainer's Tribe. I'm just going to make sure that everybody is ready to rock and roll and in the tribe. If you're watching this live, please comment live. And if you're watching the replay, please comment replay. So trying something a little bit different today. For those who are watching, I don't know if you can see, I got some like funky backlights back there and stuff. You dig them? Send a thumbs up in the chat. Just going to drop this here to the group. And my internet's really bad today. So I apologize if this is choppy, everybody. Whoops. What am I doing? Pardon me. I'm losing my mind here. Okay, so it looks really... All right, guys. I apologize how poor my internet appears to be right now, but we're just going to roll with it, right? Like sometimes things aren't perfect, so we're just going to roll, right? So I'm just letting people in, letting people know that we're live in the tribe. And let's do this. So again, if you're watching this live, please comment live. If you're watching the replay, please comment replay. If you are watching this on YouTube, then make sure that you join the tribe. Descriptions in the link, because the whole entire Q&A presentation is not going to be held on YouTube. I'm going to back out of there soon because this is going to be exclusive for the tribe. But come join us, right? The tribe's full of kick-ass people. I've said this before. I love this statement. A rising tide lifts all ships. Come be part of a rising tide. The tribe is growing. It's like 240 people in the last 2 weeks. It is absolutely amazing. The vibe in there is amazing. And I want to thank everybody right now watching this in the tribe for making the tribe what it is, because I'm not doing it all on my own. You're making the tribe what it is with the vibe that you're bringing. So I want to say thanks. So let's absolutely get into some questions. Alina's question is about portion control. She says, Alina's question is, my problem is portion control because I feel I'm not hungry enough. How do I get rid of that, as well as the snacking at night? I feel like we covered the snacking at night, but I can't remember. Yeah. When it comes to snacking at night, quick recap. We talked about this last week, but more than happy to mention it again. When it comes to snacking at night, move your meals to later in the day and replace your snacks with foods that are better choices than what you would eat if you didn't have them available, right? My go-to snack at nighttime, I have 325 grams of yogurt. I put chocolate-free, calorie-free chocolate syrup in there, and I put like 300 or 200 grams of pineapple. Honestly, I don't even count it. I just throw in pineapples. I throw in berries. I throw in chocolate, calorie-free chocolate. It's delicious. It's a big, huge meal, and honestly, it keeps me full. All right, so problem with portion control. Not really 100% certain on the question of the problem with portion control, just because the caveat to what was said there was that feel like I'm not hungry. Okay. So I'm going to interpret this question as you feel as though that you're not eating enough at your meals because you're not hungry at your meals and then snacking later in the day. This is why I am a huge fan, an absolutely huge fan of a high frequency eating schedule. Okay. 5 to 6 times per day. You're never really going to be hungry. You're eating frequently. You've always got amino acids for like muscle growth in your system. You've always got carbs for energy because we don't do keto here. Fuck that noise, right? If you do keto, I'm just playing around. But so eat regularly, okay? 5 to 6 meals per day. Eating 5 to 6 meals per day is going to make sure that you've always got amino acids present for muscle growth. And the more muscle you grow, the more calories you will burn literally just at rest, okay? So just eat more frequently, maybe smaller meals, smaller portions, more frequently throughout the day. That's the best way to eat, in my opinion. Next question is by Jared. This question is about the ideal number of sets while working out. Jared always does 3 sets of everything and sometimes 4. How is it supposed to be? Okay. When it comes to determining your sets that you should do on an exercise, there's many factors that will come into play on this, okay? Your training style is going to play a role and a factor. If you're using a high intensity training style where you're taking sets to failure, right, and beyond with intensity methods, then one really hard set per exercise is all you need. And the sets leading up to that really hard set should be sets that are warming you up and getting you prepared for that hard set. Okay. Another way to look at the best number of reps to use, another great way to look at the best number of sets to use when training is looking at your overall training volume per week. Okay. So research out there is indicating that a sweet spot for muscular growth is between 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week. I personally like to train muscles more frequently. So 10 to 20 sets per week. Okay. And then obviously that's total sets per muscle. Okay. So, for example, maybe you got 3 sets on bench. There's 3, right? You got 3 cable flies. That's 6, right? And then you've got some push-ups. Okay. So there's 3 more. That's 9, right? And then I don't know, maybe you can finish off with just like 1 intensity drop set or something to take it to 10. And that would be 10 total sets per training session. Okay. Another way to look at the right number of sets to do when training on a muscle group is I wouldn't exceed 10 sets per muscle per workout. And your total sets per week shouldn't exceed 20. If your total sets per week exceed 20, you're doing junk volume. And honestly, if you could do more than 10 sets total per muscle per workout, you're probably not training hard enough because you should be spent by then, right? So hopefully that helps. If you found that useful, just send me back a thumbs up in the chat. Carlos's question is the best 3 to 4 exercises to get a stronger, more defined chest. I love this question. Okay. It's perfect because, to be honest with you, when training your chest, you want to pick exercises that accomplish 4 things maximum. Okay. So You want a skill-based exercise where you can load very heavily. And I would say a bench press or a version of a bench press is great for that. Okay. Skill-based exercise, not anywhere near failure. You shouldn't be failing on a bench press. You should fully contract the muscle. When you fully contract the muscle, a great exercise for that on chest is going to be a cable press where you come across the body and you kind of round your upper back, but keep your chest proud as you finish the exercise. You also want to stretch the muscle out. Variations of chest flies are phenomenal for this. I personally really like cables just because of the resistance profile where you can get load throughout the entire range of the exercise. And lastly, the fourth thing that you should do when training a muscle is kick its ass and take it to absolute failure and recruit all muscle fibers. A good selection for this is going to be a machine where you can work extremely hard, and if you fail, you don't risk injury. Is that helpful? I feel like I just blabbed that out. I've got reels on this topic too. So use a skill-based exercise where you can load heavily and you can progressively overload, okay? Because you can't progressively overload. Like you can't add weight every single week to a cable chest press. It's just not going to happen. But you can probably add a little bit of weight every single week to your bench press, right? So that's why skill-based exercises, the big fundamental movements are phenomenal to warm up, and they recruit the most amount of muscle per movement. Okay. So I'm a big fan of big compound movements that I call skill-based exercises. Bench press to start. Okay. Again, as a recap, you're training chest, you want a skill-based exercise, bench press variations where you can load heavily and progressively overload from week to week. Okay. That's number one. Next thing you want to do is you want to fully contract the pec. An amazing exercise for this is cable presses. Even better yet, have a back support and sit down on a bench. Okay. You're going to protract. You're going to round the upper back and push your shoulder blades against the bench while keeping your chest proud to fully contract the pec and get it to squeeze all the way in here. Don't you dare pick up a plate and do this. Please don't. Anyone in the tribe, don't let me see anyone in the tribe ever doing that, please. I'll kick you out. I won't actually, but, and then you want to stretch muscles out. So fly variations are good. Okay. And you want to recruit all muscle fibers, take the muscle to failure, use machines, chest press machines, whatever it may be, where you're taking a muscle to failure, where you don't risk injury or getting hurt by doing so. Okay. Another great thing to consider is where's the challenge in the exercise? How am I moving throughout the exercise? What speed am I moving throughout the exercise to get the most out of the exercise? Okay. So for example, if I'm training chest and I get down in the bottom in a chest fly, if I'm training chest and I get down in the bottom in the chest fly and I don't spend any time there because I'm trying not to shit my pants and get out of the exercise, you're going too heavy. The purpose of a chest fly is to stretch the muscle out. So use a weight where you can hang out in the bottom and really stretch the muscle out. Take a pause there because that's where the challenge of that exercise lives. Okay, so other stuff to think of. Feel amped up today. All right, so when it comes, Sean is asking, should you do weights first or cardio first? Sorry, I'm just trying to think how I can word this. So for most people, you should always do weight training first and then do cardio afterwards. The only time that you would do cardio first is if your goal in training is to be good at cardio. Okay. But does that make sense? So like if you want to be a good long distance runner, if you want to run a lot, you need to run a lot, and you're trying to get good at running. So you should run a lot and you should run often. Okay. But in my opinion, even when that's the goal, like I would separate your cardio from your workouts and run a lot if that were the case. 99% of the time, use weights to get stronger, to grow muscle, and then cardio afterwards. Okay. There's something called the law of specificity in training, and like you should be making decisions in your training specific to the outcome that you want to achieve from your training. Okay. So that's why like I do reels about like if your goal is not to be a mass monster bodybuilder, then don't train like a bodybuilder, right? Train for fat loss if your primary goal is fat loss. The law of specificity in training matters. 100% it does. You'll still get results training any way possible versus not training, but you will get better results by applying the law of specificity. That helpful? Everybody digging this so far? Just say digging it or thumbs up in the chat. I got to make sure that my internet connection, I'm hoping my internet connection is okay. Says it's poor. I'm going to check in the back end here. Glad I checked. So Jared, like on a fly, you don't want a 3-0-3-0 tempo. Do you want a 3-2-ish tempo? So not everything's black and white. Okay. I have programmed a 3-0-3-0 tempo when doing chest flies many times. Because my thought when I'm doing that is I want constant tension on the muscle. I want no pauses. And I just want the muscle to just like flex and lengthen and flex and lengthen. And if you do that perfectly and you keep tension on the pec the entire time, it's a phenomenal tempo for training your chest. I will say when you're in the bottom of a chest fly, you have no business being in the bottom of a chest fly, not feeling like you have the ability to control the weight. Okay. And when you're doing a 3-0-3-0 tempo on a chest fly, it's not like here in a quick change of motion. Like when you're doing a 3-0-3-0 tempo on something, say for example, on like a chest fly, you want to like open up pec, feel like you're controlling. My arms aren't in a great position because of the cameras and stuff, but when you're doing a tempo on a chest fly, you want to open up pec, feel like you're on pec the entire time, and feel like you're contracting pec to move the exercise with a 3-0-3-0 tempo. You will see a lot of people in training, they start the lift fast. They lift fast, right? When they start the exercise. And what are they doing? They're using momentum. Okay. Think about it this way. If you had a car in a ditch and you were trying to push it out of the ditch, you would definitely want to explode it out of the ditch. Why? Because it would be easier to push the car out of the ditch. But when we're challenging muscles in training, we want to make it hard. So keep that. I always say to my clients, start slow, contract hard. Think of that with the 3-0-3-0 tempo. 90% of the time or more, I'm probably going to use some form of a controlled pause in the bottom of a chest fly, but there's a time and place for everything with context. Okay. Water. Cool. Okay. So my internet is absolutely horrible here. Can everybody hear me okay? Just say hear you okay in the chat. I apologize. I went to try to get a cable to connect the computer directly, and they didn't have the cable that I needed. So I had to come back to be on time and be present here for you. Because like last week I was late on a live because I had I had camera problems. I didn't want to do that this time. Can everybody hear me okay? Just say hear me okay. So Alyssa has a question about what to eat, how much, and what time. Okay. Alyssa, I have a podcast on how to build your fat loss diet without giving up your favorite weekend foods. Go check it out. Tom the Trainer Fitness Podcast. Let me try something. When it comes to building, when it comes to your like meal free, how much I would say, because you're asking how much should I eat? That's where I would say like listen to that podcast because it literally tells you, it'll literally lay things out for you. I'm gonna see if I can find something here. I did a story today about just like try stuff. You all are seeing literally just like messy action. I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to this stuff. This is my first real Facebook group that is like a large free Facebook group, first podcast, first time using new softwares. I'm just figuring stuff out as I go, but take that as a lesson for yourself, as though like that applies to everything you want to be successful in life at. So if you are trying to get to your fitness goals, just take action, figure it out. I dropped a comment in the chat. I just want to see that it's there. Maybe not. Okay. All right. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Alyssa, I will answer your question 100%. I don't want to spend too much time trying to send you to the podcast. Tom the Trainer Fitness Podcast. Okay. Look up Tom the Trainer Fitness Podcast. And it's episode number 2, how to build a fat loss diet without giving up your favorite foods on weekends. So that's when it comes to how much. The simplest way that I can tell you to build your diet is to multiply your body weight by 10. The simplest way to determine your calories for fat loss without giving up your favorite foods on the weekends and being able to have a cheat meal is to set your calories by multiplying your body weight in pounds by 10. Okay. Try to eat 1 gram per pound of protein, and the rest is carbs and fats. Do that 6 days per week, and one day you can go a little higher on your calories than the others, and you will lose body fat, not give up the favorite foods that you love on weekends, and you will, I lost my train of thought, and you will not hit a plateau, pardon me, okay? I mentioned earlier on the live to I'm butchering this live today. When it comes to what times to eat, I would say, again, you should spread out your meals, 5 to 6 meals per day, spread out evenly throughout the day. I personally like to have my first meal upon waking. My last meal is literally right before I go to bed. And then I space out the other meals evenly throughout the day. I personally also have a meal that's specifically planned out post-workout that I have immediately after my workout. For me personally, what I do with my diet for timing on foods is very simple. I have breakfast upon waking, and that's 7 o'clock in the morning. I have breakfast. At around 11 o'clock, I have my pre-workout meal. I'm starting training by 12:30. Around 3 o'clock, I have my post-workout meal. Around 5 o'clock, I have my snack midday snack meal. Around 8 o'clock, I have my dinner, and then I have a bedtime snack. Okay. I hope that helped. Alyssa, did that help? So as a recap, body weight in pounds times 10. As a recap to build your fat loss diet, body weight in pounds times 10. 1 gram of protein per pound to simplify it. The rest of your calories are made up of carbs and fats. Space your meals out evenly throughout the day. Space your protein and your calories out evenly throughout the day per meal. Any recovery ideas for tennis elbow? When it comes to dealing with overuse injuries, tendonitis, tendinopathies, tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, those kinds of things, any like itis injury, any overuse injury, you need to reduce inflammation to start. What I do when it comes to tendonitis style injuries is I reduce inflammation immediately through icing it, and I blast it with like non-steroidal anti-inflammatories immediately. Then you have to avoid movements that aggravate the injury to downregulate the central nervous system's response to pain. You need to get it to chill out. Then once you've gotten it to chill out, negative loading is good for tendonitis style of injuries. So the best way to do that when dealing with an elbow is to like do maybe a bicep curl, for example, and you curl up with 2 hands and then you let it down with 1. Very lightweight, very controlled. Negative loading is good for tendonitis. And then you need to slowly increase load over time without aggravating it. When you're dealing with the injury, you want to load it to the point where you may feel a little bit of discomfort after the fact, but it's gone within 24 hours so that you can continue to build tolerance in those tissues through minor increases in load. To simplify it, I can go off on a rant here, but ways to progress as well, to consider things, is it's not just all about weight. Range of motion of the exercise is a factor. Maybe adding stability to the exercise in the position where the injury is least tolerable is a factor. So these are all like ideas that you would throw at it. But I came from like a rehab specialist background to start. All these certs and stuff behind me. I fixed bad backs, and I was known as the guy, if you got a bump and a bruise, he'll fix you. I don't do that online because I don't think it's ethical of me to sell programs that are going to fix people's injuries, because I can't just write a program that's going to fix an injury for people. There needs to be a lot of dose response, load response, move forward, pull back. It takes a lot of intuition. So the best thing to do when you're dealing with an injury is to deal with one-to-one in person, in my opinion, a rehab specialist or a physiotherapist when it comes to those. All of my clients now will probably attest, if they're watching this, if they're dealing with an injury, I do give some guidance with that injury, but I always recommend that they get to a physiotherapist. And the other thing that I will say when it comes to dealing with an injury, get to a physiotherapist immediately. Okay. I know what I'm doing when it comes to injuries. I recently jacked up my neck. I recently had nerve issues happening on my left side of my arm. I knew I had an idea as to what was wrong. I still booked an appointment with my physiotherapist immediately because he's an amazing physio and it takes like 2 weeks to get into him. I booked it immediately. I worked on the things that were necessary to get myself back able to train daily. And like right before I saw him from the injury, the last 2 times I've seen him for an injury, by the time I get into him, he's like, yeah, you got it sorted out. But I don't waste time. And I do not risk not being able to accomplish my goals from a setback. So when there is a setback in place, I put a solution in place as fast as I possibly can. And that's what I would recommend when it comes to injuries. I will say that like I normally usually always fix my own injuries by the time I see my physiotherapist, but I still book appointment immediately. I used to not do that, and I ran into an injury in my cervical spine that was more than I could handle, and I tried to rehab it myself for 6 weeks before I got to the specialist, the rehab specialist, physiotherapist. He instantly knew what was wrong with it. I wasted 6 weeks trying to figure it out myself. I've talked about this in my life story and the high performance habits that will change your life. Episode 1 on the podcast. Go to experts. Go to the people who are experts in the thing that you need help with to get it fixed as soon as possible, right? I do help clients with this, but it's not something that I could like address on a live, if that makes sense, because I just don't have enough context, right? I help with clients with this, but I also tell my clients while I'm helping them with this is I get them to go to a physio immediately. Okay. Deal with it as quickly as you possibly can. Tommy had some good ideas for that. Steam room and sauna and ice bath. So Tommy's idea of steam room and sauna and ice bath is to put a lot of blood into the area because blood equals healing, and then also reduce inflammation through the ice bath. Those are good things that may work, but I would say physio all the way physio. Best lower back exercises for those with injuries by Rob. This is my jam. This guy, this in the background, changed my life. Absolutely changed my life. I used to walk with a limp for 7 to 8 years from a back injury. I met my wife Alyssa by helping her with her back injury, and I've rehabbed one of the groomsmen in my wedding. I fixed his back. I've rehabbed many bad backs. Like I said with the injury earlier, is like it really is something that you have to address as an individual, and you have to use exercises that don't aggravate, build tolerance, and then progress the exercises. I want to help you a little bit with it. Is I would say pick up a book called Back Mechanic by Stuart McGill. Those concepts got me to about 85 to 90% recovered from my back injury, just the concepts of that book. And then I took things to a completely different level with a more advanced methodical approach to how I would correct things. And I actually reverted the injury all the way back to my left ankle that I blew up in 2007. But Back Mechanic by Stuart McGill is a phenomenal book for back injuries. Entry-level exercises to strengthen your core are going to be a McGill crunch or a dead bug, where you keep your feet high in the air so that your heel doesn't get close to the floor. Grab a hold of your hip and wrench on your spine. because there's distance equals demand, and there's load that happens when you do that. It wrenches on your spine. McGill crunch is something where you lay flat on the floor and you put your hands under your low back and you keep your spine neutral. You like think like if you had a popsicle stick and you could attach it to your sternum and your chin, you would keep that position. And then when you keep that position with your hands on your low back, and then you lift your chest, your shoulder blades off the floor, and you hold with one leg bent. So your foot is touching the floor. The sole of your foot is touching the floor. So your knee is from your hip to the knee back to the ankle makes a triangle, and the other leg is straight. So you lay on the floor with one leg straight, kicked out. The whole leg's lying flat on the floor. Your foot, the sole of your foot on the other leg is making contact with the floor. You place your hands under your low back. You keep your chin in a neutral and your neck in a neutral position. You come up just slightly. You lift your shoulders off the floor just slightly, and you hold that position. It's called the McGill crunch. I'm not saying this is good for you. I'm saying this is a good exercise for back rehab. I'm not directing anybody to do anything specific for injuries on this call. Just putting that out there. Okay. Side plank variations are very, very good as well. And bird dogs are very good as well. But the key to the side plank, people do horrible core exercises. They do it horribly. When you're doing a side plank, your spine from your tailbone all the way up to the back of your head should be in a perfectly straight line. But people sag at the hips in a side plank, and they don't, and then that grabs a hold of the spine, and it creates a curve in the low back. The hip is flexing towards the floor. The hip is laterally shifting towards the floor, creating a curve in the spine. That's no good. You want to stabilize your spine, not create movement in the spine. So when you're doing your side plank, you have to consider the fact that your spine needs to be straight, which means your hips can't sag. And when you're doing a bird dog, you need to control your hips and your pelvis, and you need to move slowly. And same thing, your spine should be stacked in a way where your spine's not moving. But people do bird dogs where they just like kick all over the place, and it's like horrible looking. And it's just people don't know any better, unfortunately, but now you know better. Okay. Again, I'm going to reiterate like 1000%. I'm not telling anybody to do anything specific for their rehab. These are principles for rehab for these style of injuries. Go see a physiotherapist, right? Dave's asking, how much protein do I need per day? I currently weigh 80 kilograms. Dave, a really good way to determine your protein intake, if you're a really good way to determine your protein intake is your body weight in pounds times 1. That's a pretty good way to look at it. But it depends. Sometimes people I set up on their protein intake is 0.8. Sometimes it's 0.75. Sometimes I have people's protein intake 1.2 grams per pound. Like, it just depends. But I would say, as a good rule of thumb, don't get much lower than 0.8 or 0.75 per pound. Everybody's still here. This is still really helpful. If you are watching this on YouTube, go join the tribe, because I'm peacing out on you.